All right, so I moved behind the camera like Keats do his magic. So Keats, what's the first drill that you might recommend trainers start with sort of assessing their clients' movement skills?
Like I mentioned just a little bit ago, the squatting pattern is probably one of the most fundamental patterns that we have to do. So just something as simple as a sit to stand and or stand to sit and sit to stand drill gives you an idea of what this person is doing when they're squatting, and it'll probably also give you an idea of what you're going to see when you load it, okay? Because it's probably only going to get worse when you load it. So you could vary the height of the chair. It could be a box, it could be a bench, a step. But just having them perform, just tell them literally, I want you to just squat back and sit down. And just see what they do. The three main points you really want to look at, and you're going to need to look at different angles. Trainers need to be much more concerned with sort of a panoramic view. You don't just want to look at it in one point of view, because we've got three different planes of motion, and we want to see what kind of problems might be going on in those different planes. So for instance, from the side, as they initiate their descent, where does the motion primarily happen? Is it happening more in their, are they hinging from their low back? Does this person have low back pain? That might be something that would be helpful to know, because if you can eliminate that faulty pattern of initiating from the spine, you might actually help their low back pain. Or are they hinging from the hips better, where they're literally hinging? Now from the front, you also want to look at what's going on with the tracking of the knees. If you took their shoes off, you might be able to get a good look at their feet as well, so that might be helpful. Are they kind of collapsing into this valgus position, this internal rotation adduction position, and going like this? If this is anybody who plays any kind of sports or running, jumping athlete especially, this is a horrific pattern to have for knee health. So that's something you definitely want to look at. And also just the tracking of the toes, right? We want those toes tracking, I mean these kneecaps tracking somewhere over the second to third toe. There's no one way to squat that's right for everybody. But if it's causing them pain, or if it doesn't look good, and you can see a lot of twisting and torsion going on, it's probably not a good pattern that you're going to want to load. And that's not a very hard assessment to do initially. Now, after that, another really fundamental pattern is just your basic deadlift. We don't need a bar, we don't need to load it up. We're not trying to see how strong they are. All we're trying to do is see, can they move? What is their pattern? So you can have a step like we have here, a medicine ball, a kettlebell, a sandbag, and you're going to just not coach them through it. You don't want to show them, you just want to tell them. So if they're fast learners and they see you do it well, then they may actually mimic you, and then you think that they're actually pretty safe, but that was just a temporary thing because they sort of figured it out watching you. So you just want to tell them what you want them to do. And have them just bend down and see what they do. Same thing with the squat. Are they rounding? Are they collapsing their thoracic spine and the head goes forward, kind of going in this like protracted shoulder, sort of shoulders in? Or are they really getting the butt out, weight on the heels, and really using their hips? And most people, naturally, they're not going to move that way. So these are two just extremely important patterns that you would probably want to start with, and then we'll...
All right, so we're back, and Keats, we went over the two basic patterns, and the next two we sort of selected, you were going to go in some depth about, were things that a lot of people aren't talking about, or sometimes they're using, but they're really not optimizing the movements. So what's the next one that you had in mind?
Well, since a good portion of our gait cycle is performed on one leg, okay, especially when you're walking. Now when you run it changes a little bit, but we're just talking about basic walking, which is how most people get around, is you have to be able to accept that weight while you swing the other foot. So there's a lot going on one leg at a time. And a lot of people in boot camps and with trainers are doing a lot of single leg exercises like walking lunges and things. I think that exercise is a little almost kind of magical to some people. They think it like somehow it has a better effect on the glutes, on the butt muscles. Really it doesn't. It's just a great movement. But you want to capture what your client can do on one leg. So to start with, can they just stand on one leg? That is a great start. And what you're looking for here are some of the same things we talked about in the last segment with the squat, is what's happening with the alignment. Are they falling in what's happening with the level of their pelvis? Is it keeping level, or are they shifting into what's called a Trendelenburg? It's just a fancy word for a weak lateral hip or glute medius. But if they have a hard time doing that, you know, they might need a little more coaching before you get them into really aggressive single leg stuff. Beyond that, we can go into just a basic step-up pattern. And this step here, for example, might be a little high for somebody. And obviously, if you knew the client had pain coming into it, this might not be a test you would do. But you just want to see, how do they negotiate stepping? And you're looking for many of the same things. What's happening at the spine and the hips? Are they collapsing? Are they flexing? What's happening with the alignment of the knee? Is it doing something like this? Or maybe the opposite. Are they coming way out, and are they on the outside of their foot? Okay, again, we're not trying to diagnose. We're not trying to figure out all the problems. We're just trying to figure out, how can they put it together? How well does their brain or nervous system kind of assemble all these different parts into a movement? So we're looking at movement patterns here. And of course, we're going to want to look at both, because they could be really good on one and then just horrific on another. So we really want to know what's going on. From that, we could also get in just to a basic, just a forward lunge. If they didn't really have any kind of red flags that would keep you from doing this, just how's their basic lunge pattern? If you weren't comfortable with that, have them try a stationary lunge. I mean, this is really where most people should start anyway. Can they even do a stationary lunge from the side? So I'll switch feet here. We're looking at what's their natural stepping length. If it's really short and they're going really into their knees, you might know that they really like to use their quad muscles. They shy away from using their glutes, their hamstrings, their primary hip extensors. That's something that's good to know, because if you don't screen them at all and just send them into these exercises, you could be stressing out their knee, you could be stressing out their back, you could be setting them up for some problems that's going to make you look like a poor trainer. So from that, we'll just touch a little bit on the upper body, and we'll do that in the next segment.